Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Learn with Jason. Today on the show, we've got Sean Grove. Sean, how you doing?
Doing all right. Glad to be back. It's been a while.
Yeah, I'm happy to have you back. And for folks who haven't seen your previous episodes, do you want to give us a bit of a background on yourself?
Yeah, sure. So worked a lot on developer tools for the past decade or so, and most recently worked on a lot of GraphQL pieces. Worked on a product called OneGraph, which is effectively a GraphQL endpoint in front of a lot of different APIs, GitHub, Spotify, Salesforce, that sort of thing.
Hmm.
And worked a lot on the open source tooling, both for that, but also on the consumption side. How do we make it easier to access all of these services, including things like Auth and TypeScript and all sorts of things. So end of last year, ended up joining Netlify, and that has been rolled into Netlify in a really nice way where because we can vertically integrate it, the experience is much nicer than we could do from the outside. So yeah, that's what we've been working on for quite a while now.
Yeah, and so I want to talk a whole lot about that, but I want to spend a little bit on the kind of abstract of this because you've been in the GraphQL world for basically as long as GraphQL has been a thing, as far as far as I can tell. You were there on day one, and it's been really interesting to see the way that you have kind of um, taken the GraphQL space and moved it in a way that I haven't seen other people doing it. So maybe a good starter question is, what got you to start thinking about GraphQL as something like what you see it potentially being?
Yeah, sure. And actually, it's gone through several phases, to be honest. I think, I was initially excited by one piece and didn't understand another. And just over the years, the more I've used it, the more I've understood the different applications it has. But the original inspiration was I was actually working on an application that showed you a unified view of your customer, right? So your
Hmm.
customer might have data in MailChimp and Stripe and Zendesk and elsewhere. And so I saw, as a founder, I was typically checking a lot of these different places, trying to figure out where is that data, where is that note, where's that ticket. And I wanted to just have, a view, like here's your user. And the data was sharded everywhere, but in my mind, it's like one coherent thing about the customer, right?
Right.
And so I ended up integrating something along the lines of 20, 25 different APIs in order to get that application to work. And each one was kind of snowflake, right? It was unique. The way that they did their URL, some were REST, some were more RPC. Authentication was totally different. Some people, did a query parameter, some did it with an authorization header, some did it in the JSON part. And that uniqueness really didn't help me at all, right? Like it was an additional cost to me. And not only that, but I had to remember, how is this Zendesk ticket linked to this customer over here, linked to this lead over here? Rather, in kind of, there is a graph, right? There's an implicit graph where all these pieces are connected everywhere, but it's implicit. And I, as a developer, have to traverse that, right? I have to like pull a customer down, pluck off the ticket ID, and then go and
Hmm.
make a call into the API. And so you kind of have two levels that are really mixed together. One of which is, what data do I want? Right. And I can tell you that very easily. Then the second one is, how do I get that data? And that's a lot more difficult, right? That
Right.
involves learning all these different APIs and everything. And so when GraphQL came out, and I did a little proof of concept with it where I could just have customer and tickets. And when I could just query it, and it would go and figure it out. It was slow and janky and whatnot, but that kind of experience was like, oh, that was like a light bulb going off of, oh my goodness,
Yeah.
I can just tell you what data I want, and then you figure out how to get it right.
I feel like I had a different but sort of similar uh, growing awareness of GraphQL's capabilities when I was working at IBM because we were doing this thing where we had lots and lots of teams, each of which had their own API, and to actually use this data, everybody in the company had to figure out how to authenticate with and use these 25 different REST APIs, and then we were all writing our own logic to combine that data together. We were writing our own logic for refresh tokens, or in a lot of cases the security wasn't even there. They were just like, well, these tokens will live forever, just post it into a Slack DM, and that's what everybody uses as the token. And then you have all this logic about like, well, filtering all this data, and if you didn't know any better, you wouldn't filter the data, and you would throw it out to the client side bundle by putting it through Webpack or something, and then you've got these giant JSON blobs of 25 APIs worth of data that gets passed to the client because we needed 6 fields. And so when I did a proof of concept with GraphQL, and I realized that, wait, we could put all these together and make that query for 6 fields that come from 6 APIs and get one JSON object with just the data that I need. And I was like, oh no, this is going to change everything. Right. And so this was really, and it sounds like you kind of hit that same point, but you weren't dealing with internal teams. You were dealing with a whole ecosystem of tools.
Exactly. And then I think the next step is, and an area that we spent a lot of time trying to focus on is, while that part is very cool and often gets the initial attention, the developer experience you can do on the other side, where you have this typed graph, and things are expressed in this graph in a way that tools can read very easily. And so you can take a GraphQL query and then translate that into something that the developer can use, kind of whether that's in Go or JavaScript or TypeScript, and you get really, really nice experience, regardless of the language that they're working in. Mm-hmm. So you kind of have this double-sided benefit, right? Where you're not just building one SDK for one language, but by just defining your data model in this with this approach, anyone can appreciate a much nicer API interface.
Yeah. Yes. That feels huge to me, right? And the other benefit here, and what you're saying about GraphQL is that, like, you have this underlying schema that's not dependent on JavaScript or Python or Go or Ruby or whatever. It's an independent definition of this is what the language returns, and you get back strongly typed data. And that to me is really exciting, especially when we start talking about some of what you've done with Graph at Netlify. So let's maybe dig into that specifically, because you said at OneGraph you were working on this proof of concept where instead of having to go to, say, Salesforce and then GitHub and then Jira and then wherever else to say, give me all of this customer data, you could just query the customer and find the issues attached to them, find their Zendesk tickets, find their Salesforce profile and their, whatever else, and get all that data back in one place. So how, I know is that the same in Netlify? Is Netlify Graph the same general idea?
It's slightly different. So that original proof of concept was me saying, here's my model, and here's how to map it onto the underlying APIs. A few years later, I actually started OneGraph. So I set that aside. That was in end of 2014, beginning of 2015. And I thought, while this is very exciting, I think it's going to take some time to mature as a technology for people to catch up. And so I waited until I think about 2018 to actually start OneGraph. And the approach there was to go and take these non-GraphQL APIs and make them GraphQL APIs, and then allow them to link together. And so that's what Netlify Graph is today.
And so we'll dig into exactly how that works when we get into the coding portion of it. But one thing that I find really exciting about this is that with Netlify Graph, you mentioned the idea of being vertically integrated and that allowing us to do more. So can you say a little bit more about what that means in the context of Netlify Graph?
Yeah, sure. So going back to the beginning, we actually worked on two, I think, fairly important open source packages for the GraphQL community. The first of which was GraphQL Explorer. And this gives you kind of a visual way of clicking through an API and just, almost like a folder system, where you don't even have to know GraphQL. You just say, oh, I want, a Zendesk ticket, and I want the subject, and I'll be assigned.
Let me just stop you to fanboy for a second, because that package, I think, is such a game changer. And if you've watched this show, you've heard me talk about how much I love the GraphQL Explorer. It's such a neat tool. Chat, have y'all tried this? Have you used this tool? Like, let's get a couple boops in the chat if you have used that tool. Oh no, the yeets are out. But yeah, okay. So the first package was the GraphQL Explorer, which I love.
Exactly. And the goal with that was, there were people who could tell you what data they wanted, but they didn't know GraphQL necessarily. And so this kind of helped with that. I don't know GraphQL yet. Help me, just let me tell you what data I want, and then you give me the GraphQL. So kind of wanted to make a smoother onboarding, right? Because it's kind of a step function where you could get nothing out of GraphQL until you learn GraphQL, and suddenly it's great. And we wanted to make this the smoother process where you could just click on the data and you'd see the GraphQL query getting built. You could kind of understand, how does one translate this intention into the implementation? And then inside of, once you run that query, you get the data back and you're excited. We often found that was kind of that's great, but now what? Like, how do I take this GraphQL query and get it into my application? Right? It's not useful inside of, the web page, the little explorer. I need to have it actually inside of my application. And people would end up tripping over a lot of different challenges, right? Do I use just raw HTTP call, just fetch? Do I use Apollo? Do I use something else? If I use Apollo with React, how do I, structure everything? And we had a sense of, well, we know how to take this query and turn it into, for example, a bash script or an Apollo query or a relay query or Vue or Svelte. So we built all these tools to make it so that question of, okay, I see the data that I want in the Explorer, how do I get it into my application, to make that much smoother. But then there's a whole lot of questions that we didn't know, right? We don't know, are you using Next.js? Are you hosted on Netlify? Are you hosted on some personal platform? And so because of that, we couldn't give you everything, right? We can't just, there are some things that we can't make assumption about. But when we're on Netlify, we know exactly where the functions should be. We know exactly where the components should be. We know if you're using Remix, then we're going to do it in this style. We know if you're using TypeScript, we should generate it with types. We know if you're using subscriptions, we know how to automatically generate, real-time data subscriptions for you. That sort of thing. So because Netlify has this kind of end-to-end integration where we know everything from your GitHub repository to the CDN at the edge, like we know all of that. And so that allows us to make a lot of assumptions whenever we're generating the infrastructure for you, so that it makes that experience of, there's almost never, hopefully, well, what do I do now question. It's, oh, this data looks good, get that into my application. And we know exactly where to put that data and how to spin everything up.
Yeah, I find that so exciting because, to rephrase that, because chat, this is important. Listen up here. What this means is that using Netlify Graph, because Netlify is also building your site, we know enough about it that if you go into your Netlify Graph and you click in the graphical explorer to say what data you want, and then you click the, a generate handler button, it's going to build a serverless function in your site that automatically gives you the ability to pull that data in. So you don't have to write API authentication code. You don't have to figure out how to get whatever company's token and put that into your environment variable. You don't have to deal with whether that token's going to expire, because we'll handle the refresh tokens for you. And you just get to go back to building your app and call that endpoint with all the data ready at your fingertips in a totally secure and expandable way. And that can come from multiple API endpoints.
Yep.
It's
huge. The philosophy
is
the philosophy is, look, I can tell you what data I want or what action I want to perform or what events I want to listen to. You tell me how to put that into my application in the best practices way. Like, don't make me try to figure it out and like stumble over everything. You know all of that. So I'll tell you what I want and you put it in my application.
I love it. I'm so on board with this. It's so cool. So before we switch over to code, I want to talk just a little bit about the kind of use cases that you've seen this unlock, because as an individual, I can see a few things. For example, I want to be able to look at my GitHub data and pull a list of my issues. And, if I have a certain number of issues, I want to send a message to, I don't know, maybe I want to open a ticket in product board or something like that. Or if we know that we've just closed a deal in Salesforce, maybe I want to play a song on my Spotify, right? But what are some interesting use cases that you've seen where people are combining this data and what you kind of see going forward from here?
Yeah, sure. I mean, there are quite a few, and it varies depending on the needs of the company or the individual building it. One of the motivating use cases for me, and this may not be relatable to everyone, but anyone who has ever used a Salesforce API will almost certainly relate to this. I wanted to have a graph at a company I was at, which all it did was reach into Salesforce, pull out a list of our opportunities, and just graph it, just the size of the opportunity and the likelihood of closing, just like a nice screen, snapshot of where are we as a company, how are we doing, and that is days of work to figure out how to even authenticate with the Salesforce API. Which of the 5 APIs is that data in? How do you pull that out? How do you pull that out on the client without involving some sort of server? How do you authenticate with OAuth on the client, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And now like building that is literally something like a 20-25 minute exercise, because you just go in and you click what you want and you generate a page and it has a form. And about 10 to 15 minutes of that is going to be figuring out how to get D3 to graph the thing for you, right? Like getting the data in is the easy part. Like you get to focus on the differentiating part, which is making a really nice user experience, right? And making that app feel crisp and clean.
Oh, I love it. All right, so I feel like we could continue to talk about this in the abstract, but really where this is going to click for me, and I think for everybody else, is when we get to see this thing happen. So let's dive in here. And I'm going to switch us over into pair programming mode. There we go. All right, camera 2. So we are currently talking to Sean Grove, and oh my goodness, my captions are broken. Oh no. What happened, everyone? Oh, they're like broken. What the heck? Uh-oh. Hey, Amanda, can you send me the stream text link directly so that I can share that in the chat? Thank you so much. Sorry about that. All right, everybody. The chat we have, oh no. Okay, copy link. Oh, good. Back. Where are we? Joining the call. I broke all the buttons, everybody. Okay, I'm back. And I'm going to copy this link. And I'm going to come back here and I'm going to paste this link. If you want to see the live captions, they are available here in the chat. I will also put this up on the screen for a second. We've got Amanda with White Coat Captioning running the live captioning for us today. Thank you very much, Amanda, for being here. And that captioning is made possible through the support of our sponsors. We've got Netlify, NX, and Backlight all kicking in to make the show more accessible to more people, which I very much appreciate. And I will go and fix whatever I did wrong there shortly after this episode. Then we're talking to Sean Grove. So you can head over on Twitter and give Sean a follow. And that's about all I know right now, right? We've got on the netlify.com blog, we've got an announcement about Netlify Graph. So let me pull this up and share this real quick. So if I'm ready to get started, I could read this blog, which has all the instructions on how to get started. But since you're here, I'm just going to ask you, what's the first thing that I should do?
Well, I thought maybe, this works with lots of different frameworks, but maybe we can just start with a bog standard Next.js app. If you happen to have one lying around that's linked to a Netlify deploy somewhere.
Tell you what we can do is we can set one up really, really fast. So what is it? npm create Next app. Is that how it works now? Yes. And we'll call this Netlify Graph Next. And we're going to get everything installed. Good deal. Okay, so that is now running. So I can go into Netlify Graph and let's just see, did it give me a git? Nope. So we'll git init. What? Git branch main. Okay. Now I'm going to git add all, and we will git commit this and say initial commit. And we're starting from an absolutely empty folder here, so this is how fast you can get a site up on Netlify if you've never done it before. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to GitHub repo create, and I'm just going to copy paste my repo name here. What? Oh, got to do the public. There it goes. Okay, then I can git push, and we'll set the upstream to, we got to add the remote. Git remote, add origin, git at GitHub, and then we'll paste in this again. And then we can do git push upstream origin main. Off it goes. And then we can just initialize this thing on Netlify. So I'm going to run in ntl init, And we're going to create and configure a new site. We're going to put it on my team. We'll call this Netlify Graph Next. And we'll authorize with app.netlify.com, which opened in the wrong window. So I'm going to open it in this window, right? And then I just log in with my GitHub account. Whoops. Great. You hackers, you dirty hackers. Give me just a second here. We're going to try this one more time. Authorize. Are you going to make me get a GitHub access token? This is exactly the problem I was worried about. Let's see. Okay. So that's fun. Oh, I'm logged into the wrong account, everyone. That's what just went wrong. So let me log in again. Okay, there we go. Now I'm going to Netlify init again. Authorize. Do it this time, please. Oh my God. Okay. I don't know what I'm doing wrong.
Could also deploy through the web UI, perhaps.
I'm going to have to deploy through the web UI. I don't know what I did. So we're going back here. We're going to sites. We're going to this Netlify Graph Next.js, and then I'm going to go to site settings. We're going to go to build and deploy. This is a new computer. Like I just got this computer and haven't tested any of these flows yet, which is going great for me. Oh, there they are. And then I can go to learn with JSON, Netlify Graph, and there it is. Gonna deploy the main. It's got all the next stuff. So that's here. You can see it's automatically detected. So we're gonna deploy it. And there it goes. Okay, so now that we have this, we can also, we should have all of our node modules and everything. This should build in about a minute. And while we're doing that, I'm just going to start it up locally. So just run the Netlify dev and it boots up the site, right? So this is all good. This is doing what we wanted. And the site is approaching built.
I think you should be able to link the site now.
I think it might already be linked, actually. Let's look. Netlify state. We've already got the site ID, so it should work from here. Okay, next build. And here we go. Come on. You can do it. Here we go. There we go. It's all happening.
To keep it simple, we can just develop on localhost for today.
Yeah,
we'll leave deployment for later.
Yeah, and it should, I feel like this is going to work now that the site is actually running, but you know, we'll see. So okay, I have a site running. I'm able to. It's deployed. It's operational. If we go out here and look, here is our next site running on Netlify. We got that all built and running. There we go. And now I'm ready to add Netlify Graph. So what are my first steps here?
Yeah, so all you're going to do is, just like normal, run Netlify dev on your application, but you'll add a -- graph flag. So during beta, so this is all in beta as a disclaimer, but during beta, it's behind a flag. And that's going to take care of allocating all the resources that you need. And one of the links that it just gave you in the terminal there is to edit your library, visits this link right there. If you hold on Command, and click that, it should take you right in. And this is the, hey, we see that this is your first time using Graph experience. It's going to give you a little bit of an overview, but we know what we want to do. We just want to go ahead and connect to an API. Okay. And I thought maybe for today, we could just play around with the Spotify API. We could also do GitHub if you'd like, one or the other.
Let's do this. So we'll start here with what, authentication?
Yeah, and let's not do authentication. So
okay, we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, so authentication will allow you to say, all right, look, I want to use this API token on the back end for myself. But what's more challenging than that is how do you get the user to provide their token? So maybe we can play with that.
Yeah,
let's enable the graph and start from there.
Okay, so I've enabled the Graph Explorer. I'm going to
Hmm.
start querying.
Yep. And just pick the session. So you just have the one session right now. I'll take you in. And yeah, we should be good. So
And so
let's
this
maybe
is the
just search.
Explorer that I was gushing so much about.
Exactly.
I love
So
this
how
so
about
much.
Spotify, and then we maybe search for some tracks, and we'll see what we get back. And we'll just play with this for a little bit.
Okay,
So
so
just hard code something right now for the query.
what do you want to listen to, chat? We're gonna listen to Born to Be Wild because for some reason that's the first song that came into my head. Oh, gotta actually like get something, right? With what comes back. 3 tracks.
Yeah, and then for each track, let's maybe get the name, the ID, and we can start with that.
Cool.
And you can see that it's saying that you're not logged into Spotify as of yet. So if you click on the authentication, this will allow you to kind of explore it locally. So log into Spotify.
Let's see. How do I log into Spotify? I'm gonna pull this off screen for a second. The timing on this is good because I actually migrated off Spotify to Tidal and just haven't turned this off yet.
Hackers.
Okay, so that's logged in, and I've got my Spotify account. And now if I run this again,
Yep,
there it is.
that looks good.
Look at all
So
these songs.
that's giving us, so we kind of can explore and play around in here. We could maybe get the album if we wanted to. But to start with, let's just go ahead and save these changes.
Okay, I'm gonna save changes.
And if you go back to your terminal, you should see that that's going to sync. It notices that, hey, you added Spotify. I noticed that you added this new operation. And let's go ahead and open up the code now, and we can see what this looks like.
Here's our code. And look, in the state it added some things, but I'm...
Yep, and let's look at the Netlify Graph operations library inside of there. So you can see that that's your, Born to Be Wild query.
Mm-hmm.
And you have a doc string up there that just says an example query to start with. Let's go back to the UI and edit it and save and see that, how the changes flows back. So if you scroll to where you typed Born to Be Wild in the Explorer, and you hover over the query, there should be a little dollar symbol. And that means turn this into a variable.
Mm-hmm.
So now if you just hit save, let's go up and hit save changes again. Again, that'll flow through, and now it's a query. So this updates it on your local.
Chat. Did you notice this is my local machine, right? So we're on the Netlify website, and because we're using the Netlify CLI, when we make changes here, it's auto-generating the code that we need to update our queries. It's so cool.
So that Netlify operations library, that is the one file that everything is based on. That's like every operation that your application needs, but you don't typically use it very much because the CLI is going to take care of generating a whole lot of handlers or helpers for you.
Mm-hmm.
So if we go into the code and maybe we try to import this Netlify Graph file, so maybe under pages index.
Pages index.
Or, yeah. Actually, API would be even better too.
Yeah, let's go into API. Okay, so I'm going to create one to get, just do a song JS. And then I want to import, is it CJS syntax? I forget how Next does this.
I think it's ESM.
Okay, great. So then I want to import something.
What's it called? This Netlify Graph.
There's my lib, Netlify Graph.
Yep, no, and that's it. Just Netlify Graph.
It. Okay.
And we'll just call this, instead of destructuring, just the whole thing is called Netlify Graph.
Okay.
All right, and so now if you try Netlify Graph and dot and see the autocomplete, let's see what's on that object there.
Grab this little
bit
of
a good idea.
Default here. So let's Netlify Graph dot.
And you can see that you have fetch example query there.
Ooh.
So that's the name of it, which is not super useful, right? So maybe what we can do is go back to the editor and let's change the name of this. So you can simply, or not so simply, but in the Explorer, if you scroll all the way to the top, on the left-hand panel there, you can just edit that there. So we can always maybe search or search Spotify, up to you. And then if you notice in the bottom right, there's a tiny little panel, a little bit down. No, keep going down. Yeah, right there, the description. Let's give this a description.
Okay. Okay.
And then we'll go ahead and hit save whenever you're ready.
Save.
And we should see inside of your code some red squigglies pop up shortly.
But
because you no longer have a
TypeScript, so I think it might be.
Okay, it's happy if you're like, yeah.
But let's see.
All right.
So now if I go back in here, oh look, it changed.
Yep.
Here's my fetch Spotify search.
And if you hover over that, you can see the document, the description, the search for a song on Spotify.
Oh yeah, it's right here.
Came through. So you can actually you give your descriptions inside of those queries. So whenever you're working on the data or the mutation or whatever, you say this is what this does. That actually flow through for the rest of the team. Right? It's like a nice documentation, nice human level documentation of, hey, what's this thing for? Okay, so now whenever we actually invoke this thing, you can see that we have to use some variables, and that's going to take some input. And so that's an object. And if you just autocomplete here,
oh, beauty.
You can see that, hey, it knows. And it also knows that query is optional, right? Because you provided a default value.
Oh, that's right. I did.
Yeah.
And so it says up here that it's a string, so I know it's not an object, and I can just search for something else. Let's do what? There's a.
And if you hover over query, I'm gonna keep nailing this home for a while. Yeah, so it knows the string. We'll see that on another one. Never mind. Okay, so let's go ahead and await the result of this. And now if we try to do result dot, we should see, okay, we have data.
Data.
And
fetch Spotify search. Or wait, did I do the wrong thing? I got lost in here. Data dot.
No. So I think we probably have a little bit of a bug here. Let's go to the CLI.
Wait, why?
And let's try.
Wait.
Fetching.
I think it is. We had a TypeScript bug because we didn't make this async.
I see.
Okay, let's try this again and see if it listens now.
If you hover over result, what do you see? Okay, so that's there. And if you hover over data,
it says record.
Yeah, so you can see that it's saying that this is a record string unknown. So it's like I don't actually know what's here.
Oh,
so
okay.
you can still access the data there, even if there's some weird typing structure underneath it. But so it won't block you, but it's giving you a warning saying, hey, I'm not sure what this is. So I think if we go to the CLI and we go ahead and close it, and let's run a command, Netlify Graph pull.
Pull.
And this just says, hey, go fetch the schema and any events that might be out there. Yes, and also it tells you if you install Prettier, you'll have a nicer experience.
Okay. Pull again.
All right, we'll run that. All right. Okay, so hopefully, now if you hover over data, do we have anything?
Oh, yeah, look at that. Now it knows.
Yes.
Oh, that's huge. Okay, so now I go Spotify, and we've got a search. All right, yep. And then we got tracks. That's what I wanted. And then I can map these, and I get a track. Oh, geez. Okay, we got our track ID. We got our track dot name. We get our track dot artists dot. Oh, we're gonna map again. Artist. And then in here we'll return artist dot name, and then we can just join. Like, that is huge. I mean, obviously this isn't going to do a whole lot for us. So let me let me maybe do a little bit of these. Just get both of these at once. And then I'll get rid of this one. Okay. So now if we run that, which we should be able to do right now. So I'll run Netlify dev graph. Or I guess we probably don't even need the graph to be running, but this is helpful, right?
Exactly.
And then I go to API. What did we call it? Search?
Yep.
Nope, that's not what we called it. We called it song. Cannot read property.
Yep. Okay. So in this case, we made a call into the API, but we didn't actually provide any access token. So there's no access token. And what we could do, so if you go back into the code, there's a second argument that the fetch Spotify search takes, which is some options. And one of them, so again, this is an object, and it'll autocomplete for you. One of those options is going to be access token. And so now we have to ask ourselves, okay, well, how do we get an access token in here? And we could go into the web UI and enable that and restart our server. But I think it's maybe more fun if we, again, try to do this from the client side.
Yeah.
So what you've done here is, you've kind of worked from the ground up. You've said, okay, I'm going to import my Netlify graph. I'm going to build my own custom handler. I'm going to invoke that. I'm going to pull apart all the pieces. But again, like I said, like we know that you're using Next.js and we know the query that you're going to run. So maybe we can just try generating a handler for that and see what the result is.
Yeah.
So if you want to go to the web UI, so you can also do all of this from the CLI, but we can just do it from the web UI. If you, under actions, you can generate handler. And if our CLI is running, then it'll get that event. And now inside of your code, under Pages API, you should have a new route, Spotify search. And so this says, hey, look, I know that's where Netlify Graph is. I know you probably want an access token. If you want to use the client's access token, you can uncomment this line. If you want to use your access token, you can uncomment this line. And if you hover over the data on line 17, it's just as typed as whenever you did it. You get all of that autocomplete in there. So it's kind of like, look, here's all, if you want errors in the data, here's what you need. It'll do some form verification. This is kind of the bare minimum, right? This is like, what do you need for this to work? And now you can take this thing that works and tweak it. However, I noticed that we're using exports here. So this is one thing that I would like to improve is it'd be nice if we could auto detect if you're using kind of common.js versus ECMAScript modules or ESM. We can actually change this inside of the netlify.toml though. So if we open up netlify.toml, so most of the things that Netlify Graph does, which is, yeah, you can get pretty far without it. And this is going to be under the graph section. So yeah, graph, and it's called module type equals a string of ESM, and it's module type camel case. Okay. And if we restart the CLI to pick that up.
Just like this, we don't need to do a poll or anything like that?
No. And if you regenerate the handler,
okay. Let me undo whatever changes I made there so that it doesn't get a conflict when I regenerate that handler. So generate.
Okay, and there you go. So now you got
bada boom.
Your handler. It's using ESM. So the idea is kind of in the meantime, while we add on, make this more magical, where it can auto detect all these sorts of things. You always have the ability to override it and say, actually, I want you to do TypeScript, even though you don't, recognize that I'm using TypeScript. I want you to generate TypeScript for me. So inside of the underneath module type, you could add language equals TypeScript, and this will actually generate a TypeScript file for you instead, and you'll have full types inside of there as well.
That is nice.
Okay, so we generated this file for you, but on your pages, there's also a new one called Spotify search form.jsx.
Oh,
so this
wow.
is a new
okay.
route.
All right.
So you can just go to that route now.
Okay, so the site's live. So I'm just going to come out here, and this was called Spotify search form.
Oh, and this is one thing is that it's going to handle auth on the client side for you. So
Hmm.
let's actually install the Netlify Graph Auth package.
Okay, try that again.
Okay, so now we have a form that handles your form state and whatnot. And again, this is just bare minimum. This is just get me started, give me something that works. And if you submit that, it's going to run it and then say, hey, you're not actually logged in. So let's go back to that. Before you log in, let's go back to the code, the API code.
API
So
code.
this, yep. And we want to uncomment line 8, where we're saying, actually, I want to use the user's. The user is going to pass me in an authentication header, and I want to use that.
And this is important for a couple reasons. The first is, like, by doing it this way, we're letting the user act as themselves. If we did it with our system token, they would be acting as whoever queried that token or whoever established that token, right?
Exactly. So whenever you deploy this, later on today, anyone will be able to go there, click login, and it'll query from there. So if you were to query for my playlist, it would be their playlist, not yours when you logged in.
Oh, that's cool. That's very cool.
And so now let's go ahead and go to the page, and you can see that whenever you ran it, we automatically detected, hey, you're not logged into Spotify. You need to log into the specific service. So that's already built in there. So now if you
Right.
go
And
ahead
it,
and
like, that
oh,
doesn't
go ahead.
show up until you try.
Exactly.
Okay, so I try this. All right, there's my button to log in. I'm going to click login. I was already auth, so it just kind of does the no op and drops me back in. And here we go. We got the songs.
Exactly. So you're now querying on your Next.js app. You have a full form that will actually run this query with authentication and give you the data back.
And we wrote zero code, more or less. Like, all we did was mess around over here and play with these objects, but this is generated. We uncommented
You could
this.
tell your boss you wrote it. I mean, feel free.
Well, and for all intents and purposes, that's what's happening, right? Is
Yeah,
we are this is kind of the promise of like GitHub Copilot too. It's the idea here isn't that all the code is being like written for us and we no longer matter and we can be replaced. It's removing this huge amount of what I would call toil. Of
yes,
you've got to go through the docs of Spotify's API and figure out how to request that token, figure out where to store it, and then you got to come back out here and figure out this code to write. Okay, I got to send this request with this authorization header and all that stuff. And really, all that does is gets you to exactly where we are now, which is I'm able to send a query and get some data, right? So
exactly.
now I can come in here and instead of dumping my result, I can just use it to put together a good like list of artists and songs.
Exactly. And one thing that I hope to be able to add is it'd be really nice if you could teach Netlify Graph how you as a team write your forms, how you write your API backends, so that one person on your team says, well, actually, we don't use the standard button. We use our design components.
Mm-hmm.
We use accessibility this way. And now I, as someone who goes and fills out the GraphQL query, I don't have to know all of that. Right? I hit
Right.
generate a handler and it says, boom, here's how your team wants this all done. Right? And that's all the stuff that I would normally have to translate could be embedded inside of this entire process.
Oh, that's cool. So if I remember that doesn't exist now though. That's like a
It does
that
not exist yet, but that's one of the things. You know, a lot of Netlify's UI is now built with Netlify Graph. So all of the
right.
Graph UI is actually built using Netlify Graph. So there's a dogfooding component there, and there's a lot of translation that goes between as me, someone new to maybe the Netlify UI best practices. I don't know how to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a lot of kind of, again, fiddly work, right? Like
Right.
learning how to translate this. And, as soon as we can push that down, my productivity will probably be 2 or 3 times higher because I'll just be able to say, look, if someone has updated the best practices, I don't have to learn those manually, right? This is built into the tooling.
This was honestly when I was at IBM, one of the biggest challenges we had was that we had full teams dedicated to going and embedding with other teams to help them update to the latest version of the design system or update to the latest version of the authentication management or whatever thing it was. And so you had these like easily dozens of engineers whose entire job was cleaning up boilerplate on a rotating basis. And so it felt like a very losing battle where as soon as you walk away from a team, they're not trained in how to manage the design system. They're not trained in how to manage auth or security or any of that. They're building UIs. And if we didn't have an automated way to bring all those things together, that team was just they were on a carousel of deep sadness. Really.
Yes, that is exactly what I was thinking. It's like, yeah, that's a lot of sadness. That's challenging.
Yeah. And so, that is definitely, this to me feels like the reason I got excited about Netlify in general when I first joined the company is that it feels like the Netlify promise has always been, we're not going to take away developers' ability to be developers. We're just going to remove the junk that prevents developers from building cool things. So we're going to unlock the boilerplate and the foundation and the crap that you have to set up to get started so that you can just build the thing that you're excited about. And why I'm so excited about this is that this feels like it delivers on that promise at a new layer of app development. Where Netlify was focused on front-end source code, Netlify Graph is giving us a step further back, where we added serverless functions, huge productivity boost for me as a developer. I feel like I have superpowers. Adding this is adding superpowers to the superpowers of now I don't even have to go argue with GitHub's which settings pane I need to be in to get an API token. I just click the button. And I want to show why this is so freaking cool because hold on, before I go down this rabbit hole, I know you had more to show. So do we have enough time for me to go down a quick rabbit hole and show the token process?
Oh, I thought it might be fun to, if you want, to hook up a mutation to actually play one of these songs and then see if we could combine it together to show the album and the name of the song. And when you click on it, it actually plays on your player. It's up to you if you want to do that.
Absolutely. Let's do it. So to do that.
So we're going to go in iteration mode.
Let's
let's start first by pulling in the mutation. So let's go create a mutation to actually play a song first.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Am I still running?
And then we'll kind of merge those two things together.
Here we go.
All right. So we're going to create a new up there. We'll create a new mutation and give this a name. Just maybe play. And yeah, under Spotify, we should have a list. So again, we can just kind of see what are the actions available, right? Mutations are actions that we want to take. And we want to play a track.
Okay.
And again, just that dollar symbol. So this is going to say, hey, this is the track ID. And then this is going to modify the player that you have. And it's going to update the thing. So it's going to return you the new player state. So you can say, are you playing?
Okay.
And you'll see where it says equals quote, quote, up at the top. That's saying this is a optional variable. Let's make it required. So I'll add a bang there. And we'll see how that actually affects our setup. So let's go ahead and save that. So we can save the changes and then, oh yeah, good idea.
Okay, so I'm going to save.
Mm-hmm. And then go ahead and generate a handler as well.
Okay.
And if we go back to the so site ID looks good. If we go back to the first page you had with the search, maybe we can grab one of those track IDs.
Okay, so out to my search. Here's the track ID.
Okay, and now let's open a new tab and go to the play song form.
Play song form.
Form, yeah. Okay, and it needs that. If you submit, you'll probably get an error back saying, hey, you're not logged in. But also, we need to tell it on the API part, which authentication token do we want to use?
That's
By
right.
By default, it doesn't use any authentication token.
Okay, so we need this one. Okay.
Okay,
Unknown
and
error.
So it's working. It's just saying that, hey, you don't actually have any Spotify player open.
Oh, I don't have, will it work on the web player?
I think it should.
Okay, good, because I haven't installed Spotify on this yet. Okay, open the web player. I'm already logged in. Good, good, good. All right. So theoretically speaking, if I go to like, let's go to liked songs. I'm just gonna play one quick second of this, right?
Perfect.
Just to make sure that it's active. And then I'm gonna come
Yeah.
back here.
Boom. All right.
Wait, where is it showing? Here it is. It's playing. That is freaking incredible, right? And yeah, like I'm only gonna play like a couple seconds of songs so that we don't get muted on YouTube and Twitch. But like unbelievable how fast that was. I didn't write any code. I just uncommented one line of code.
So let's go into the query explorer and go back to that original query of search. And what I'd like to do is on the results for track, let's go into albums. So on the left,
track,
tracks. So not that one. So that one is
this one.
The search results.
Oh, tracks
track,
album.
Should be, yeah. And let's get the image URL. Images, height, URL. Yeah, the height and URL is if you want to have it proper, but you can just put it as is. Let's go ahead and save the changes so that flows through.
Okay.
And we should be good to go now. You could.
Do I need to regenerate my handler or anything?
No. It might be a good idea to, just for the sake of it, let's go into netlify.toml and change the language to TypeScript. So we can kind of see what that's like. No, so we want module type to stay ESM.
Oh.
But there's a new entry called language, and that's going to be equal to TypeScript.
Like so.
Yes.
Okay.
So we'll save that. And then now you can go ahead and generate your handler for it. And with any luck, it will generate, let's see, generate handler Netlify function. You may have to restart the
to
CLI
pick up the new thing.
On that change. Yeah. But with any luck, it should hopefully generate a .tsx file. Okay. It doesn't look like it.
Might be, maybe it's because it's already finding this one.
Could be. Well, we could just try to wing it and see what happens.
My favorite way to be.
Yes. So the reason I was wanting to do that is this is the client side page. So it doesn't know what data it's getting back at all, but we know. And that type actually exists. So if we wanted to name this to, change the name to .tsx, we could actually potentially import the type in here.
Okay. Do it like that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
From lib Netlify Graph, is that right?
Exactly, yeah. And then there should be a type in there, if we autocomplete, called search, Spotify search.
Okay.
So that's the result. And then whenever we get the results.data down here, so we submit the form, result. So on line 11, I believe.
Line 11.
Yeah. So we can say that use state is actually of type Spotify search or null.
And we do that like...
That's a open curly, Spotify search. And then instead of a comma, it's a single pipe.
Oh. Got it. Doesn't like that because I'm doing what?
Oh, at the bottom, was there something there? It says expected 0 type arguments got 1. I don't know. I'm not super prolific or great with TypeScript.
I know, I'm also like mediocre at best with TypeScript. Maybe what we can do is one of these, like as Spotify search. Is that completely unacceptable? Why doesn't it want?
It seems like it's not picking up that it's TypeScript. Yeah. I wonder if you need to restart. But All right, we can back out. We can abort. Back out. Just change it to JSX, and we'll continue with our own hacks.
Okay, we'll do it. We'll do
For
it.
for someone who knows TypeScript, they should be able to figure that out and
right.
let us know what we're doing.
So we'll get rid of that, and there will be TypeScript examples in the future for you TypeScript users. You don't want them written by me.
All right. So now where we just do that kind of pre tag and we put out all the data.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe instead of there, we can pull out. So it's going to be something like result dot, data. And it might be easy to do this query inside of the search or Spotify search, over there, because it knows the types.
Yeah, we've got the data, so we can get the data dot Spotify dot search dot tracks, and then that's going to be one of these. So then we want the track, and inside of this track, we want to get the track dot name, track dot artists dot map, and we'll get the artist. And for each of these, we want the artist dot name, and then we'll be able to join those. And then we want the track dot album images URL, or dot, just get the first one, and we'll just get the URL. Okay. So those are the pieces we need. So I can go take this back out, come out here to the search form. We'll put that in here, and I can change this to be some JSX instead of whatever this is. And so we can set up like an LI, and that LI will have a key of track.id because we know we have that. And we can do let's do an href. We need to figure out what that is, but we can in the meantime say track.name by and then just copy this part over. And then we can have like album and take this part over. Or no, we want the image. So let's forget about that part, and instead we can do an image source equals one of these, and then as an alt we should probably get the album name, which I'm not going to do right now. And theoretically speaking, this is going to work. Use next image instead. We're not going to, won't worry about that right now. Here's our
optimize. You need to optimize.
Result.data.data. I screwed something up. Result.data.
And then data will be probably empty the first time we load it because we actually haven't got any data back yet. So it's maybe results and end, or something along those lines. Oh yeah.
Does that explode? Nah, that's good. All right, so then we can go. Nope. Search tracks. What does this say? Cannot read properties of null. How dare you?
So I think Spotify is null there.
Spotify is null.
Yeah, exactly. You can just add question marks everywhere.
Okay, so we need to do something like a little bit of error handling here to.
Well, so the errors will be shown already.
They will.
So I think, I suspect that we're not persisting the states across page refreshes, and so I think if you result dot errors. Okay.
I forgot to actually include this. So we got these, right, we're missing our auth. Great, fine.
Did we regenerate the handler? Do we maybe need to
yes,
uncomment?
We certainly did. Let's get this one out. There it is. Let's try this one more time.
And just submit.
Okay, so there's our details, and down here at the bottom, we should get albums. All right, so I'm going to take these results out again. And we'll just comment these out in case we need them again.
Okay, and now what we want to try to do is see if we can have a button that when we click it, will call that mutation or call that backend to run the play song mutation.
Okay, so we've got the ability to kind of click these. We need to add the right URL, and so the URL would be.
Well, what we want to do, we don't want the URL to take us there. We want it, when you click it, it actually starts playing in your player.
Oh, so it should
just
be
like
a
that
button.
Mutation page. Exactly, yeah.
Got it. Okay, I'm doing it wrong. So we're going to do a button instead. Mm-hmm. And our button will need to do a thing. And the thing that it needs...
if we look at the play song form page, it should have some code that we can just kind of steal.
Perfect.
So there should be a submit form there, and we just want to copy that over. And yeah, oh, perfect. Yeah, that looks good.
Okay, so we'll be able to submit the form, and we need to get the body form variables track. So we need to submit the form with probably the track ID.
It's an object that says track ID. So track IDs.
Update form variables, track IDs. Where am I? Sorry, this is actually called...
So let's go back into the search form. I'll walk you through it. So this is where the TypeScript would come in handy, because there's actually a TypeScript type for the input. So it will tell you, look, you need to be passing this thing in. So let's delete form variables on line 84, and we'll just make it an object with track IDs, and then an array with just track.id.
Okay, so then we need to put in... Oh, we can just do it like this because we're declaring the function right here. Perfect. Okay, so then we can...
I was going to do it the other way, and I thought that was brilliant. Yeah.
OnClick equals submit form, right? And if we wanted to, we could even play on Spotify. So now it's clearer what it's doing. Okay. And then nothing up my sleeve here. This theoretically works. Oh no, I did it wrong. It submitted. Also, what happened? Nothing happened. So I need to come back here and figure out what I did. It submitted to the play song form. That's not the thing we were looking at. We're looking at this here. Okay, so there we go. And then when this submits, I want to catch the event, and we'll event prevent default so that it doesn't send us anywhere. And then what?
Do you want to console.log the results.json, the form result there, maybe?
All right. Oh, we don't have a set result either, do we?
We do, because they both reuse the same structure.
Oh, good. Okay, so then if I log this result too, that should also...
Yeah, except this is going to overwrite the result. So let's copy out the set result.
Take this one out.
Because right now the result is the result of the search, and we don't want
right. That would break everything. Okay, so then we're going to come out here. We're going to search, get our tracks, click it, and let's look at our object here. We got an error. Unknown error. Spotify play track. Active.
I assume that it's like your... Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Let's try this one more time here.
And then this should work for anyone, right? Because this is just using the client-side authentication. Someone logs in, and boom, they're controlling their Spotify player with that search form.
That is outstanding. Like this is, I mean, this is just so cool that we're able to build an app this quickly. And, you know, I mean, that like we'll be able to spend our time on the functionality of this thing, of, you know, making this look nice and making sure that, you know, we've got the right accessibility measures in place and all those things, instead of arguing with APIs and figuring out how to put the right auth in the right place and all that stuff. This is unbelievable. Like I feel like this, it just makes it so much more fun to build for the web when you get to build like this, you know?
Exactly. And then I think as we add more, APIs to the other side of this, any GraphQL API should be able to participate in this, and you'll get all of that same experience as a developer, right? You'll get all those autocompletes and auto generation and all that kind of thing.
Okay, so now what I want to do here is I actually want to deploy this because I want people to go be able to try. Right, so git commit m, and we'll say search and play is working. Let's just see how easily this this goes live, because I know I had some issues with the way I hooked this up. I suspect it's gonna work. And
yeah, we'll see. I mean, it's a risky move, but yeah, why not?
But now, while we're waiting for that to build, we can come back here and we can look at Graph. And so today, when we look at what's available, we have Box, so file storage and sharing, Contentful if you want to get at your CMS data, GitHub, NPM, Salesforce, Spotify, and Stripe. And so this is a pretty good starting point, but we're able to add a lot more pretty quickly here, right? So
exactly.
Where should somebody go if they're like wanting to see an API hooked into Graph, or if they're a company that wants to get in on this?
Yeah, so I think the gentleman we're working with is named Den. So he heads up kind of the expansion plans around the APIs, and I would say just tweet at him or send him DMs. I assume DMs
That's
open.
Not him.
I think Dennis Code.
Oh, code, not codes. So that's Den. If you want to climb into his DMs and give him the what for about what APIs you want to see. And
yeah, I see Shopify in the chat, and that would be an excellent one, right? Just being able to get that same experience with Shopify.
Yes, please.
And then there were a couple of questions kind of earlier about mocking the data locally, and we don't do this currently, but I'll just say that there are some really, really interesting plans where you should be able to develop against a service that requires authentication, not even have an account, and as soon as you sign up, it should just all work. Like the production, the fidelity of the mocked data down the road should be very high. But we're working on that. No ETA as of yet, but plans are being laid.
Yeah, there's some really, really exciting things coming. I mean, this is huge. And then when we start looking at the what we can do with these, like if I click into, let's say, the NPM one, I'll enable it, start querying, and go into my active session here, and I can then go into, let's create a new query, or actually a new subscription, right? This is the one that you showed me that kind of blew my mind. And so if we just want to watch like all publish activity, we can get the name, and this will just show any published package. So is that right?
Yep. If here it goes. Yep. There you go. Package is being published.
So anything that's being published on NPM right now, we've got a subscription. Like just incredible. I am not making it so that you can control my Spotify. But yeah, so Blooming Bean is asking how do we do Cypress testing on this? I think you'd be able to do Cypress testing on query data, but not mutation data right now. Is that right?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question. I mean, I think you do it the same way that you do any other kind of form that makes an API call, right? So whether you want to mock that API call out or not is up to you. But otherwise, just it's, as far as Cypress is concerned, this is just another web page making another API call.
Yeah. Yeah, so you don't necessarily need to mock out like our API. We do the testing for you on that. So you can kind of trust that the way that you would trust querying GitHub. You don't necessarily mock out GitHub's old API either, because that would be just an incredible amount of work.
But I do think that to that point, whenever we add the ability to automatically mock high fidelity data, then that will actually play very nicely with the Cypress test, where you can say, look, I don't have time to wait around for GitHub to actually give me a response. Just give me a mocked data that's reliable each time.
Yeah. And there's a question in the chat about using this with serverless functions. And Kurt, yes, you absolutely can. Let me show y'all this site that we've been working on. There's going to be a whole thing on how this was actually built, but this was a project that we started working on for it's still private now. We'll open source it when we write the code, or when we write the thing. But so oss.love is a way for you to go and send a Valentine to like different people in the community, and it also gives you the ability to like to sponsor them or something. So if I go to here and I want to log in with GitHub, this is using Netlify Graph. And then, or no, that's actually using OctaKit. We're getting an OAuth token using OctaKit. And then I want to go in here and I'm going to get Sean. So this is using Netlify Graph, right? And then I'm going to ship it. And this all runs through serverless functions. And you can go in here and make that work. So under the hood, what's happening is we've got our Netlify function set up. And so we're using Netlify Graph. And then we have the suite of OAuth functions that we used to call against OctaKit OAuth methods. Because honestly, I didn't know that Graph would do that for me, or I probably wouldn't have written it myself.
Yeah, I was gonna say that all goes away now.
But then under here, this is a generated function that I renamed. So we generated a handler, and then I renamed it to user.ts, and we use the auth cookie from our OAuth setup, and then we pass it into the Netlify Graph with a login, and then we use a GitHub OAuth token instead of a authorization header, and it all gives us back the data. So we're able to do all of this stuff, and so the way that you've built Netlify Graph, if I understand correctly, is you're framework aware. So because we were in Next, it knew to build pages and API routes. If I had been in 11D, that would have built out like a Netlify functions folder. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Unreal. So good.
And that's the first step. That's us teaching it how to work in a friendly manner with these different frameworks. But the next step is to work in a friendly manner with your specific code base and your specific style, as we kind of talked about earlier.
Yeah. And so, Kurt, to answer that question about generating the handlers, if your project is Next, this generate handler button will generate a Next API route. But if you are in an 11D or a Gatsby or whatever, you can just hit generate handler and it's going to generate the serverless function. Or if it's in Remix, I think it generates like Remix specific loader code, right? And it's just really clever stuff that I love it. I'm so happy with this.
And it's exactly that idea of like, I don't know this code base, and I want to like, I'm feeling good. I'm getting my data, I'm querying, I'm mutating, and I got to figure out how to get this into the code base that I've never used Remix before, or I've never used, your specific code base before. And just having that ability to say, well, show me how to do this, and then I can learn so much more quickly, right? I have something that works that I can kind of just tweak.
Absolutely. All right.
So it's meant to be like an automation that increases competency.
It's so good. I mean, it's like putting on it's like putting on a mech suit, right? Like you're like out there, you're being a developer, you're capable of what you're capable of, and then you can just like strap on this extra suite of capabilities that allow you to do more things without having to learn more things. And I think that's the real power of programming and this idea of low code. It's not to make you less of a coder, it's to give you more power without having to gain additional fields of study worth of experience. So just really, really incredible how effective this is. So this is the live thing. I'm going to log in. I'm logged in. Okay. Live website, y'all. Right. So you can all go and play with this right now and mess with your own your own Spotify playlists. So good. It's so good. I'm just mad at you for how good at this is. Like, chat. What are y'all gonna build with this? Let's hear some ideas. And also, like, what are you excited to see come in? We saw Shopify get listed. What else do you want to see in Netlify Graph? And while we're doing that, Sean, where should people go if they want next steps? Like, if somebody wants to build their first app, what's the right place to go?
Yeah, let's say, I mean, the main step is just update your Netlify CLI and just go into any CLI project or any Netlify project you have and just run Netlify dev dash dash graph. And that will guide you from there and say, hey, we recognize you're using this framework. Why don't you connect some services? Why don't you try some queries? We actually have a feature that didn't quite make it in. We thought it'd be unwise to stay up until 2 o'clock the night before doing this to implement it, but we should have it out soon. So actually, inside of that, if you go back to the code base we were working on, and then you run Netlify Graph operations. So inside of the terminal, yeah. So graph operations. This will actually give you a list of the operations that you have. And you could do also graph handler, and it will ask you, so if you do ETL graph handler, this will say, hey, which of these do you want to generate handler for? So this will do what we did in the web UI, but do locally.
Nice.
So the one that we're going to add 2 more there, one of which is ETL graph operation share. And what that's going to do is say, which of these would you like to share? So it's going to look through your operations, and it'll then check, it'll pull that operation out and check for any hard-coded values and say, hey, you're about to submit with these values, just in case you have an API token or something, just kind of once over, make sure. And if you're okay, it'll actually submit that to a centralized repository. And now anyone else can say ETL graph operations import and then pull that ID or search. And so you should be able to say, well, I've just added Spotify. What are the available functions that people have submitted already? And so, I want that. And you'll pull it in. It'll automatically add that to your library. So you can actually share functions now across languages, which is a thing that wasn't possible before.
So cool.
Yeah, so I think that's going to be a really exciting way to help people get started with, anytime someone asks any sort of support question on Twitter or on the Netlify support forum about how do I do X with Graph, it should almost always be answered with graph operations import this ID. And it just comes in. And they can generate a handler for it, and it's just all there for them.
That is I hadn't even thought about the support implications of being able to just say, like, you showed what you were trying to do. I got it running. Here's the operation, like import this and it'll run.
Exactly.
That's huge. That's huge.
And then once that's there, it's available for everyone else as well, right? Like you should, like in the future, we'll build this into the web UI where you can say, oh, show me everything's available for Spotify, and just like a little form where you can try it right there. If it looks like what you want, click a button, add it to your library.
Dang, that is so freaking cool. Yeah, and we got a lot of really valid requests in the chat for things that they want to see. We've got Sanity, Fauna, Twitch, Discord, Algolia, Orbit, Google Calendar, also Notion. Really good requests out here. Things that I would also love to see, and all things that are possible. Just a matter of what order we do what things, right? So if you want to see your things come up first, make a lot of noise. Go yell at Den. Let's just, Den's going to be so confused about why he has so many Twitter DMs. This is who you want to talk to. Whoops. Copy. And yeah. Oh man, Kurt, thank you so much for all the gifted subs. Thank you. That is, I love that. Y'all now have access to a whole lot of boops and other nonsense. So make sure you take advantage of that. Sean, I think this is a wonderful overview of just what a clever idea. And I've been following your work since the OneGraph days, and I always saw big things for OneGraph, and it feels like this is where it really starts to feel real. So I'm just super thrilled about it. Do you have any parting words or anything you want people to keep in mind as we start wrapping this up?
Well, it is still in beta form, so there are going to be rough edges and whatnot. It's in general availability, so everyone can try it out. But the more feedback we get, the better. Let us know what frameworks would you like to see more support for, APIs, operations, where do you fall over, right? In particular, we just really would love to make that getting started experience with, both with Graph, but also with any sort of new API behind it, just really smooth. So any complaints that you have, any issues, any ideas, please send them over. We typically can incorporate them in a very, very short time. I think you've seen our turnaround times before. So maybe you can vouch for our ability to do some quick turnarounds on any suggestions that people have.
Yes. And also, I just linked to the docs. The docs will be linked in the blog post as well. But if you look at these docs here, there is a feedback link. So you can go give feedback on this survey. That actually goes into our system. That is really, really helpful to us as a team for identifying what you like, what you don't like, where you hit rough edges, what broke. This helps us keep things organized so that we don't lose track of anything that's happening. All right, y'all are putting in work with these boops. All right, so you can't actually see the link that I'm showing. It's here under this feedback headline. All right, so with that, I'm going to do one quick jump back to the blog post here. Make sure you go and give this a read. It is really, really exciting stuff. I am like truly pumped to be a web developer at this particular moment because it just feels like we can do so much more than we could even 5 years ago. So I'm really excited to see what everybody does with this. Please let us know. Tweet at Sean, tweet at me, tweet at Den. Let us know what you're building and show off what you're building. We really want to see it. And please do let us know whatever you want to see, whatever you thought was going to work a certain way and surprised you. Any feedback you've got, that's super valuable to us. Sean, I'm going to put you on blast on Twitter one more time. I'm going to do one more quick shout out to our sponsors. We've got White Coat Captioning. Amanda's here doing all the live captioning for us. I got to figure out what went wrong with my link, but that lives on stream text here. And that is made possible through the support of our sponsors, Netlify, NX, and Backlight, all kicking in to make this show more accessible, keep the lights on for all of us so that we can do more shenanigans like these. Sean, any parting words for us before we wrap this one up?
No, just thanks for having me, and I'm pretty excited to get feedback on this. So let me know what you all think about this.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what you do. We're gonna call this one a win, y'all. I'm thrilled to have been part of the Netlify Graph launch. I think this has been just so much fun. Please go out and make sure you go and send some of those open source Valentines, please. Please go, just spread the love a little bit. We support organizations now too, so you can also thank Babel or Webpack or Veet or these tools that make your life easier. Go make them a Valentine. Send it out on Twitter. It really does mean a lot, even if it's just a little card to know that people are thinking about you. And
those are also world-class developer puns.
Okay, Lynn Fisher is a freaking hero. Like, how did she come up with so many of these so quickly? It's amazing. She is like got to be the best in the game. So please go enjoy these puns, share them out, and spread a little love. And keep in mind, you can definitely sponsor people. Please just throw a little. You can do it a one-time sponsorship, $5, $10. It all adds up and makes a big difference and helps keep open source more sustainable. Sean, I feel like we did it.
Yeah, that was fun.
All right, y'all. We're gonna call this one done. Stay tuned. We're gonna go find somebody to raid. Sean, thank you so much. We will see you all next time.